Welcome to my store.
Okay.
Well, people, we're going to start a segment of from the beginning up to advanced level or aquarium. As you all know, I'm just starting to learn this fish business, and then I'm going to ask so many questions that at the same people, when they come to the store, they ask. And we're going to start from, what a beautiful fish, the people say. And what is this? They start to ask and they say, is this a fresh water? Yeah, it is a fresh water. Oh, wow. And what kind of fish is this, Carol?
That's a red-tailed tinfoil bar.
Okay, then we're going to show here that we have a freshwater tank. This is a big size. Then, how big does the tank have to be in order for me to have my fish? Let's say for a goldfish.
You can have it anywhere from a little wee tiny tank to a great big, huge 10,000 gallon.
Okay, do I need a filter for it?
If you have a 10,000 gallon fish tank and you got one goldfish, you don't need a filter. If you got a 1 gallon fish tank and one goldfish, you don't need a filter.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to show them that...
If you have a lot of goldfish, then you need a filter.
I'm going to show them that, okay, we can start to having a goldfish from this bowl up to this bowl.
You can have goldfish in that bowl.
I cannot have a goldfish in this bowl. Okay, then this will be the perfect, or can be size smaller or bigger or whatever. Not like this size.
That's too small.
Okay, but this one, that's another thing. Which kind of fish is this one?
Those are the bettas.
Oh, those are the bettas. Oh, why they're called semi-fighting fish?
Well, because they're from a country that used to be called Siam. It's now called Thailand.
Do they need a filter to live with it?
They don't need a filter. They can have a filter if you want.
They can have a filter if you want.
Oh, yeah.
For how many years do they live?
In nature, less than a year on average. In captivity, 2 to 5.
2 to 5. Yeah, I had some people who they come here and either they go, oh, you know what? I used to have one, but it died. Or the other one that they say, oh, but mine lives for 3 years, for 8 years.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What they doing right or wrong? That for some people the fish last a week or 2, and for others they last 3 to 4 to 8 years.
Well, basically it depends on how well they're looked after. If the water's changed on a regular basis, if they're fed on a regular basis, if they're in a small container, they live longer than if they're in a big container.
How often do they have to change the water in the
Every time it needs changing. Usually
how do you
once a
know
week.
when the water needs change?
Because you'll see the waste on the bottom and the water won't have the sparkle to it.
Okay, can they see the fish through this? If the water wasn't clean, they won't be available to see the fish.
Well, the water can be dirty but still look clean. It just won't have the sparkle to it.
Oh, okay. Another question. What do I feed them, and how often do I feed them?
You feed them betta pellets, and you feed them every day, but you only feed them 1 or 2 little pellets.
1 or 2 little pellets. Is that enough for a fish?
Yes, because their calorie requirements are very low. You see, when we're lying still in a heated room, we go through 3 calories a minute. But a fish, they don't have to fight gravity because they float, and they don't have to heat their body because they're cold-blooded. They're the same temperature as the water.
Okay. Do the bettas are the same as other fishes, or they're different? But
all fish are cold-blooded, and all fish float, except for hawkfish and other fish.
Okay, but there is different families, right? Can the bettas live with other ones?
The bettas can live with other freshwater fish who won't kill them. See, if you put a paradise fish in with bettas, the paradise fish want to kill the betta has no interest in killing the paradise fish stuff.
Okay, then we're going to move. We're done with the bettas. Then we know that the bettas can live from this little cup to a huge big tank.
Well, it's better if they're in a very shallow tank, because they come from swamps that are fairly shallow and full of grasses and weeds, and they don't spend a lot of energy swimming up and down. If you have them in a large tank, this is a fish that actually has to breathe air. If it doesn't breathe air, it will actually drown. Its gills are not strong enough that it can pull enough oxygen out of the water, so he has to go up, get a mouthful of air, and then he blows it through his labyrinth passages, and that is how he gets his oxygen.
Okay.
If you put him in a tall tank, he spends a lot more energy swimming up and down, and he doesn't live as long.
Are the females and males are the same, or why some are more colorful than the others?
The males are much bigger and far more colorful than the females. We have been breeding for selective color in the females, and we now have the females where they have color. 20 years ago when I was first working at the wholesaler, they were mostly kind of a dull brown.
Okay, then two important things there. It is that when people say, why my fish live only 1 or 2 weeks, to the others at 3
It
or
also
years,
got sick.
it's all, they got sick. How do you know when your fish is sick?
They start acting differently than they normally act.
Let's say, do they swim? Do they go on the side? What do they do? Or
Some
they
fish-
shade?
Some fish will swim in fits and starts, and other fish, when they swim in fits and starts, that's perfectly normal behavior. Some fish, when they're laying down on their side on the bottom of the tank, that's normal behavior. Some fish, when they're laying on the bottom on their side, it means they're sick. You basically get to know your fish, you watch them, see what their normal behavior is, and then when their behavior changes, then you start looking to see if they're sick.
Okay, then important thing, people, is that, yeah, it is so beautiful that you want to have a fish for your kid. Because kids, they can learn a lot about nature and living things, and,
Well, it teaches
and this
kids
is a living
nature,
art, everything.
responsibility.
And responsibility. As longer the parents is checking that the kids can make the water change, or the parents do it. Because some kids, they just only like to have all the fishes, but to clean them,
Well,
or they put so much food for them, and that, and those are the factors that they will die if they get overfeeding,
More
if the
fish
water
die from
if
overfeeding
the water
than
is
anything
not
else.
changed, not nothing. Then people don't get surprised when your fish only lasts 1, 2 weeks or 3 years. It all depends how you take care, whether it's in a little bowl, in a glass, or in a fish tank. We're gonna go to a little bit farther today to the African sickness.
okay.
Okay, because I get a lot of clients that they say, oh, you know what? I have African cichlids, and they have babies, but they get eaten. What do I have to do to keep the babies?
Well, what we did in this tank, if you look, you'll see how we piled the rocks really close together, and you can see we got all these babies in here. See, this way, this is a mouse brooding cichlid. Basically, the female lays the eggs, the male fertilizes them, the female grabs them up and puts them in her mouth, and she gets kind of a bulgy throat, and she doesn't usually eat during the time, and she carries them in her mouth until the yolk sac has been totally absorbed, and then she spits them out, and she'll take them back in her mouth for the next couple of days if there's danger. But what happens then is when she finishes and she doesn't take them back in, the babies, if they hide in around the little crevices and everything, then that way the other adults can't eat them.
Okay, then we know that if you want to keep your babies, you gotta place a lot of rocks. People gotta place a lot of rocks in the tank.
These are a lot of rocks, a bunch of seashells, a bunch of plastic plants.
But are
Hiding
seashells
spaces.
good for the fish?
For African cichlids in salt water, yes. They make the water go to a pH of 8.2 to 8.4, which is very hard. But African cichlids and saltwater fish evolved to live in that type of conditions. If you put a Siamese fighting fish in really hard water, he's not used to it, and it will cause him stress and probably shorten his life.
Do they have to have any special rocks or stones, or do they have to be any special kind, or they just can pick up any rocks and do whatever they want, or do you suggest